Hello, everyone. Welcome back to From Her Perspective. I'm your host, First Lieutenant Nakia Comer. If you got the opportunity to join us last month and listen to First Lieutenant Laura McGovern share her story, then you know how powerful it was. She talked about her experience as a female in a combat armed branch and how she has to fight every day to overcome the female stereotype. Today, I am excited to announce that we have Second Lieutenant Reilly Rudolph here on the show with us. Reilly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I was super excited when you reached out, and honestly, when I saw your first podcast little announcement on social media, I actually thought it was so good. I know I reached out to you and Lauren afterwards, but I was literally sitting in a hotel room in Australia taking notes for the whole 26 minutes of it. It was awesome. And yeah, I'm so excited to hopefully share some perspective on my story today.
That is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It did make our day when you sent us a text message. We were so happy to hear from you. And I knew as soon as we saw your text message come through that we had to get you on the podcast. So a lot of people may not know a lot about West Point if they weren't a cadet, but Reilly had the opportunity to serve in a position that's at West Point, it's a leadership position, and 0.001% of cadets get to serve in this position. And Reilly was selected to serve, and it's called the first captain of West Point. And it's really competitive, and basically, and I will let Reilly explain it as well, because she can definitely explain it a lot more than I can. But basically what it is the first captain is considered to be the highest ranking cadet and is charged with leading the entire Corps of Cadets, which is roughly about 4,000 cadets total. And while leading the entire Corps of Cadets, while also presiding over admin and hosting all the VIPs who visit the academy, Reilly still had to manage her grades at a top-tier academic school. So Reilly, if you don't mind, can you please tell everyone a little bit more about the position and how that came to be? Is it something that you were expecting? Did you want that position? Just tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So yes, you actually had such a good description of what the first captain role is. So basically it's, for those who didn't go to West Point, you are the brigade commander of the Corps of Cadets. So like Nakia said, there's about 4,400 cadets, ranging from plebes to firsties or freshmen to seniors. And as the first captain, you are selected to be the leader of your peers, lead all the 4,400 cadets, and also serve as that liaison between the Corps and the higher military and political leaders. So I would still go to class, I would still do all of the cadet responsibilities, but then in the afternoons and mornings, I would have some meetings with the other cadet leaders throughout the Corps, meetings with the senior leadership, whether that be the brigade tactical officer, the commandant, the superintendent, and then have some interactions with anyone and everyone who came to visit West Point, whether they were political leaders in the country, whether they were military leaders from the United States Army or other militaries throughout the world, or we had some celebrity guests too. Flo Rida came, Riley Green came, so it was crazy getting to meet them, but really it was my role to be that link and that voice between the Corps and the leadership, and to really welcome people into West Point and be that voice and tell them about who we are and what we do. So it was definitely an incredible honor, but as far as how that came to be, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would have been in that position, I would have told you absolutely not. Like that is not gonna be me. Like, there's so many people in a class, and I never really, I mean, you don't come to West Point thinking that person is going to be me. But I came to West Point as a member of the soccer team. That is how I know Nakaya and Lauren, and it was honestly such a blessing to be welcomed into a team environment your first year coming into the academy, because it is definitely intimidating and lots of responsibilities, but that team was like a family to me. And I was on that team, and then unfortunately I had a career-ending injury in my junior year, and I had to step away from the team, and it was a very, very, very hard and heartbreaking decision, but I knew if I wanted to be a healthy and capable leader in the Army, which was my ultimate goal and still is, that I needed to do what was best for me and my health, and that was stepping away. So in doing so, I decided to look for other ways that I can make an impact, and that ended up being through taking a leadership position in the Corps and being more involved in the everyday cadet life. Now, I thought that was going to be maybe as a company commander, maybe battalion commander, but never thought it would be anything more. I ended up doing the Key Summer Leadership position process, which is a process where they select the academic year positions for the following year for the upper class. And at first, I actually took my name out of the running because my TAC officer was like, "Hey, Reilly, you should look into this." But I was like, I love my company so much. I love being able to make such an immediate impact on the younger cadets. And I really don't want to just be a face. I don't want to be pulled super far away and not get to interact with people and see that impact. And then through some mentorship and awesome guidance, my TAC NCO said something to me that I'll never forget. And he said, "Reilly, as you become a leader in an organization, if you are leading more people than you had anticipated, don't think of it as being pulled away and being a face. Think of it as being able to have the power to expand your influence and be that light for more people." And at that moment, I was like, "Okay, Sergeant, I'm in. Like, you got me. I'll pursue this process, but I'm going to be me through it because I don't want to be selected for a position pretending to be somebody I'm not." So I was as authentic as I could possibly be, and really just through the grace of God and some crazy circumstances, ended up getting selected to be the Cadet Leader Development Training CLDT Commander. So that's like the training for the upper two classes. It's like the culminating field training exercise. And I was super excited to lead that. It was the most impactful training that I had ever done at West Point. And we actually had to plan that remotely because during my junior year, our cow year, all the time after spring break, which is when these details are planned, we were actually doing remote learning from home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I worked with my incredible team, and we were planning this from thousands of miles away, hundreds of miles away, in our homes all across the country over Zoom and Teams and video chats. And unfortunately, my detail ended up getting canceled 2 days before going out to West Point due to COVID, but we were actually given a brand new detail called Cadet Leader Development, CLD, and it was our job to basically bring the Corps of Cadets back to West Point, integrate them into the COVID environment, test them for COVID, put them through controlled monitoring, but then make that 2 weeks of controlled monitoring an impactful time and try to come up with some ways that we could bond within the companies, the leaders in the companies could get the ball rolling on forming that team in that academic year and really developing the Corps militarily, yes, but also we had a lot of emphasis on the character side of things. And the way the academic year leadership ends up being selected is they evaluate how the different leaders throughout the summer training work together and how things go. And it just so happened one day the commandant notified me and a lot of people who worked with me on CLD staff that we would have significant responsibility that next year, and I was told I would be the first captain. And to say I was surprised is an understatement, but I knew it was an incredible honor, but an even greater responsibility. So that's a crazy story as far as how it came to be. No, I never would have expected it, but truly grateful for all the opportunity and the people that it has let me meet and help to shape, and vice versa. I mean, the people have made more of an impact on my life than I ever could have imagined.
That is so awesome. And I've shared it with you just like I've shared it with everybody else, but as soon as I saw Reilly's name was announced as first captain, I knew that they had the right person for the job. It was no surprise when I saw her name pop up. It just brought me so happiness to see you go from, something that you love from soccer, and to also seeing you happy and thriving in that leadership position, that really competitive leadership position. And so for you, Reilly, how was your experience as a female first captain? Because we mentioned that it is a rare percentage of cadets that get the opportunity to serve. And typically, not always, we have had a few, but not many at all, female first captains. But how was that as a female? Did you ever feel that you were hindered or maybe looked at differently because you were a female first captain, in charge of the entire Corps of Cadets?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When I was selected, it was advertised that I was the 6th ever female first captain. And when I heard that number, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? Like, that's it? I'm only the 6th one? And the reason why I thought of that is because I saw females in leadership positions my whole time being a cadet. And I think that is what is so awesome about West Point now, is that there are more females coming to the school. There are more females pursuing leadership positions. That when I heard this statistic, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that there weren't more, because my plebe year, we had a female first captain, Simone Askew, and she was awesome and really paved the way and set the tone for me, just looking at somebody like her, that, wow, females here can do anything. And I never thought twice about it. So representation is definitely super important, and it really, in reflecting on those experiences and looking up to Simone and some female reg commanders and female team captains, and just seeing them throughout the Corps, that was so impactful to me, to not even think twice about what women could or could not do at West Point. That gender limitation in my eyes just wasn't there, because I had seen these women break the glass ceiling that was there in years past, and really paved the way to have an open mind for me and my teammates and my company mates who were women in those same positions. So no, I don't think I had many barriers, honestly. If I'm being completely honest, I was welcomed very well into the position. I remember finding out when General Buzzard told me that I would be the first captain, and you just have a wave of emotions, but I was just thinking, okay, now what? Now where do I start? What do I do? And I'll never forget, I had about a 2-hour conversation with Dane Vanderwall, who was the first captain before me. And he sent me a super long letter and then just spent 2 hours talking to me, answering any and all questions that I had. So from the very start, from him, I was welcomed with open arms, and got a lot of questions answered, got the ball rolling. And then as far as moving into the academic year, you are definitely, when you are in that role, you're under a microscope. You really do feel the pressure of everybody looking at you to do the right thing, to set that example, to be that leader. And at the same time, people know who you are. So you do really, really feel the eyes and the pressure of not wanting to let anyone down on your shoulders. And then in the back of my head, I did have that reminder of, hey, you are a female. Not that that is limiting me in any way, but I want to set that example in the best way possible, in the same way that Simone did for a young cadet like me. I want to be able to do that for the underclassmen behind me. So one of my favorite things that Lauren said in the last podcast is that women can be leaders, and they can be good leaders to men, even in male-dominated places. And for a school like West Point, when 75% of the cadets are males, that's a perfect platform to be able to show, like, hey, women can do this too. And I had nothing but support from my friends, from my company mates, from my teammates. But definitely last year, the Corps of Cadets was definitely a unique place, really because we were the year that we were dealing with the COVID pandemic and vaccinations and quarantining, and it was really, really a leader's challenge for everyone in the Corps of Cadets, not just the first captain, not just the commandant, really every cadet leader down to the team leader in charge of one plebe, to enforce the standards, to create the standards, to help keep everybody safe, but then also deal with frustrations about not being able to leave posts, not being able to see family in the same ways that we were able to in the past. So it was definitely tough to receive criticism, and that's a big lesson that I definitely learned. I had a lot of mentors pouring into me, and Colonel Coleman, who was one of the RTOs, the Reg Tactical Officers, he shared with me the Man in the Arena quote from Teddy Roosevelt, and I'll never forget that quote. It talks about that it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or when the doer of deeds could have done them better, but the credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena. And when you're in a leadership position, no matter how big or small, you are in the arena. You are under that lens. You are in the fishbowl, feeling people look at you. And in a year like last year, academic year 21 at West Point, with COVID going on and all of the restrictions in place, I definitely had those critics, and my team had those critics saying, why did you do this, or why couldn't we do that? And it was tough because you want to make everybody happy, you want to make everybody like you, but you also want to do what is best for everybody. So sometimes making those calls is really hard. But something I found about my leadership style is that I really emphasize relating to people, and showing love to others. Like, the foundation of leadership for me is love. And if you show people you love them, you tell people you love them, and they believe you, you can't really go astray. You can't lead people astray, because if those decisions and everything that you're doing is on a foundation of love, then you know at the end of the day that those decisions you make were right, and everything you are doing does have the right heart behind it. Really goes a long way. And that's just bits and pieces that I've taken from mentors that have poured into me. But honestly, no, like, I really had a great experience. Never really felt that I was hindered being a female. Yes, I was definitely under that lens and felt that pressure to set the example. But through a year, even as tough as last year was, I thanks to the people who have come before me, didn't really have that ceiling that I felt like I had to burst through.
That is so powerful. I love that you were shown so much love, because just like you said, I'm sure there were people that can't, those 5 prior female first captains that came before you that, maybe didn't get that same love that you got. And I'm so happy that they were able to pave the way for you, so that when you got your opportunity to serve as the first captain, that's all that you got, because you absolutely deserve it. That is how it should be, without a doubt. And I love how you mentioned the foundation of love for leadership. I can definitely relate to that. With my experience as a platoon leader, I would say that, especially as a lieutenant, it's expected, with any rank, it's expected, mistakes are expected, and we're all humans. But the one thing that, you can always have, regardless of if you make the wrong decision, is that love. So even if your guys and your girls know that you love them and you make the wrong decision, at the end of the day, as long as they know that you love them, that's all they care about. And that's what they will remember. They're not going to remember that, that one bad decision that you made. They're going to remember that whole time that they were under your command, that they loved you. So I relate to that 100%. I think that was a really good point. And it seems like you really made the best of your opportunity to serve as first captain. So now that, it's been a little bit of time, about a year now since you graduated, how has serving as the first captain impacted your career now?
So, a little bit about where I am now, just to give some perspective. So I graduated in May 2021, and I graduated and commissioned as an engineer officer. So I went to Missouri for engineer bullock, where that lasted about 5.5 months, where I learned how to be an engineer lieutenant, engineer officer. And I had about 20 West Point classmates in my bullock class, and about 45 from everywhere else, ROTC, OCS, all over the place. But it was nice to have those 20 people who we all knew each other, and we had that family going into bullock. But after bullock, I moved PCS to Hawaii, where I am stationed with my husband and classmate, Reilly Rudolph. Most of the people listening, if they know who I am, they probably know me as Reilly McGinnis, and we're probably thinking, who the heck is Reilly Rudolph? I got married to Brian, but anyway, we're in Hawaii right now, and I'm currently serving in the 84th Engineer Battalion as the Assistant S2, as I'm waiting for my platoon to open up and be an engineer platoon leader. But during my time on staff, I've actually had an incredible series of experiences, everything from running a range to planning little events in the battalion, to getting to go to Papua New Guinea as a battle captain, anti-terrorism officer, and really just help lead the training that we were doing there. And while I was in Papua New Guinea, our role as the U.S. military was basically to conduct some mill-to-mill training, where we train the Papua New Guinea military, they train us, and we really just build that partner capacity in the Pacific Command. Because we are in Hawaii, we are closer than any of the other units in the U.S. Army to go there and serve in this capacity. So that is where I found myself most using the lessons that I learned being first captain, mainly because for the first time since graduating, I felt like I was in that fishbowl again. Because when I showed up, I was the only engineer female who was at my location that we were in at Papua New Guinea. There were 3 different locations. There were females from the U.S. Army at all of them, but I was the only engineer female at this location. And the Papua New Guinea Defense Force, the unit that we were training had no females in it. There were a couple female enlisted people scattered in other units. There was a dentist, a medic, but they really weren't serving in those combat leadership roles at all, and there were none there. So when I showed up and they saw I had the gold bar on my chest, I had one soldier from Papua New Guinea ask me, what is that? And I said, I'm a lieutenant. That's the lieutenant rank. He said, officer? And I was like, yes, I'm an officer. And I'll never forget the look on his face, like, wow, like a female officer. I can't believe it. So from that moment, I knew, and after learning that they didn't have any females in their unit, I knew that I was going to have to set an example, and that I was going to have some extra eyes and ears on me throughout the 3-week exercise. And it all started the first day. We played a game of rugby, and all of the men were taking off their ACU blouses and ready to go, and I saw that, and I'm super competitive. I love sports, so I took off my blouse, had the tan t-shirt on, and ran right out with them. And I had some looks like, oh, wow, the man is playing. Like, she's coming out with us. And I was like, heck yeah, I am. Like, why wouldn't I? And really just setting the tone that, like, hey, yeah, I'm a female, but I'm going to play sports. I'm going to do the hikes. I'm going to be in this combat training with you. And that it doesn't matter if I'm enlisted, an officer, male or female. I'm a soldier. Like, I'm here with you guys. And I can keep up just like all the other women in the military can keep up and do keep up. So that 3 weeks, I kind of just went into it with that mentality, built some awesome relationships, had some amazing experiences, really just getting immersed in that culture in Papua New Guinea. And the moment that I will never forget, probably the most impactful moment in my Army career thus far, was after the closing ceremony. We were just interacting with the Papua New Guinea Defense Force, talking to the soldiers, and I had 5 soldiers come up to me. I was sitting by myself. I was going to get some water, and 5 of them came up to me. They asked to take a picture with me, and then the one leaned over to me and said, ma'am, I just want to thank you for showing me what my wife, what my daughters, what my female friends are capable of. And that struck such a hardcore in my heart, because I knew that, wow, people were watching, and maybe where I didn't feel there was a glass ceiling, there's some places in this world and some areas that women don't have the same opportunities that you and I do. And they don't see those examples every day. And to have men come up to me in a different culture and say, like, wow, like, I might not have thought that you or people like you were capable of things, but I now think they are, or I now know they are. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that moment. And really any female stepping out and being an example, showing like, hey, I can do this, or you can do this, could have had that exact same impact. But really, that changed my life. That changed my perspective on my purpose every day, and serving in roles like that, going to work every day. And yeah, in an Army where females are now getting more and more integrated, I want to be able to be that light, not just to the other females in the Army, but really male or female, be that kind of leader that people look up to and be like, I can do that. I want to do that. I want to be like her. And I am not perfect by any means, and I've already had my fair share of mess ups in my 4 months since being at my unit. But it's moments like that that really inspire me. And yes, I was the first captain at West Point, but you learn very quickly getting to your unit that it's not about who you were. It's not about the accomplishments you've had before getting to your unit, whether you went to ranger school, sapper school, whether you did this in your last career or that. They don't care. The soldiers don't care. The leaders don't care. They care about who you are now, not who you were. So really just taking advantage, yes, of the lessons that I've learned, but really focusing on the here and now and how I'm going to make these people feel now, how I'm going to show them that they're loved, that they're important, that I care about them, and I'll do anything as a leader to be the best leader that I know that they deserve. So really, it's been a crazy experience, but those lessons that I've learned, especially last year, are ones that I'll keep dear to my heart forever.
I love that you were able to change the perception of how they look at females. And because of that, exactly like you said, they will have a different perception for what a female, like a powerful female, can look like for, their sisters or their children or their friends. And that is really that struck my heart too. That is really awesome. And unfortunately, Reilly, we are out of time for today. It has been amazing witnessing you trailblaze for our young generation of leaders, from you being first captain to what you're doing now. And I know that you'll continue to keep changing the perception of how females are viewed, just being you and your authentic leadership. And I thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Nakaya. This was awesome. It's always great catching up with you, and honestly, the things that you're doing in your career and with this podcast, giving people a voice and stories to turn to when things are tough is amazing. So you continue to inspire me, and I'm so thankful to have a friend and mentor like you.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. All right, guys, catch us next time to hear more